Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, today we're really going deep, tackling something incredibly complex and honestly quite challenging.
hmm
We're looking at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but through a completely different lens, a really unsettling one, actually.
Yeah, it's not the usual political take at all.
No, exactly. This isn't about, the familiar narratives or the history debates. We're exploring a hypothetical scenario, a truly harrowing journey into what the source material calls an abyss.
A shared abyss.
Right, a shared disaster so severe it forces this radical shift in thinking for everyone involved.
Absolutely. We're drawing heavily from Burke's The Days of Reckoning here.
And the goal today is to really describe in detail this approaching abyss that Burke lays out. And then crucially, this divergent mindset, he says, is absolutely vital for any survivors to move beyond the conflict as we know it.
And what Burke captures so powerfully isn't just, a crisis happening to both groups. It's presented as a shared reckoning.
A reckoning, explain that a bit more.
Well, it's this sequence of escalating catastrophes that doesn't just damage things. It fundamentally changes the whole landscape of the conflict. It strips away all the usual structures, the assumptions.
The scaffolding, as Burke puts it.
Exactly, the scaffolding. And it forces an entirely new way of operating, a total rethink of priorities, of identity even.
So when we talk about this divergent mindset, it's not just people deciding to get along.
Oh, not at all. Burke depicts it as much deeper. It's like a fundamental rewiring, almost. A psychological pivot forced by extreme circumstances, away from history towards basic survival.
Right. So our mission then is to explore Burke's vision of this abyss, the vivid details, and this resulting mindset.
Yeah, and to pull out what lessons Burke suggests lie within it, about survival, cooperation, what happens when humanity is pushed right to the absolute edge, what does it take?
Okay, let's get into it. Section 1, the approaching abyss. Burke describes this descent into shared vulnerability month by agonizing month.
It's methodical, almost insidious how it starts. Not one big explosion, but these escalating crises.
Each one chipping away at the old structures, exposing this inherent interdependence.
Yeah, slowly at first, then it really accelerates.
Let's start with month 1, where the modern world quite literally flickers out. Month 1, the silence of the grid, suddenly darkness. Imagine Tel Aviv, right? All those lights, symbol of modernity.
Just gone. Blink, then nothing. Utter silence.
And the immediate panic. Burke describes it vividly. For people in Gaza, yeah, power cuts are grimly routine, generators kick in.
But this time, even the generators fail. It's total. Everywhere.
So in Tel Aviv, the blackout hits 3 days, then longer. High-rises become traps.
Elevators stuck. Families inside. Refrigerators warming up. Food spoiling.
That basic lifeline, the phone. Dead. Just useless plastic.
It's a profound shock to that system.
And you said earlier, this wasn't just a technical glitch in the narrative, it was a revelation.
Exactly. Burke uses it to immediately expose the fragility, the brittleness of that kind of highly advanced centralized infrastructure.
It creates this illusion of self-sufficiency.
That just shatters. And it reveals this deep interdependence that the old system actively hid. So the collapse is brutal, but Burke presents it as almost a necessary wake-up call about resilience.
And the contrast in reactions is stark in the source.
Yeah. In Israel, the high-rise dwellers, totally dependent on the grid, they spiral. Helplessness. Burke talks about this adaptive capacity concept.
Right. They lacked the individual resilience because the system always worked.
Precisely. But in the Palestinian communities, shaped by scarcity, by making do, Burke describes this practiced calm.
Like muscle memory.
Almost. Kerosene lamps appear, wood-fired ovens get going. Their survival strategies were already decentralized, community-based.
So paradoxically, past hardship gave them an edge in this specific crisis.
That's what Burke suggests, yeah, an adaptive advantage. And then the engineers admit this isn't temporary, weeks, maybe longer.
Weeks without power? Unimaginable.
And that forces the choice Burke lays out so starkly. Share out of candles, food and habits of endurance, or watch cities starve while villages burn.
Well,
so the silence, the darkness, it leaves just one truth glowing, according to Burke. Without each other, neither side survives this first blow. It immediately undermines the illusion of independence.
okay, so the darkness is one thing. But then, as they're just starting to grapple with that, month 2 brings something even more fundamental. Thirst.
Yeah, the narrative layer is relentless. A punishing sun, severe drought, critical water scarcity.
The Jordan Valley cracking, wells drying up.
And the tech solution, the desalination plants Israel relies on, they fail too.
But not a technical failure this time?
No, Burke describes it as logistical chaos. They run out of crucial chemical filters. And the ship's carrying replacements. They can't dock. The ports are powerless, chaotic. Everything grinds to a halt.
And this is where that idea you mentioned earlier comes in, money becoming worthless.
Absolutely. Burke uses this to drive home what we truly value when facing existential threats. All the constructs of wealth, status, they just evaporate.
So the Israeli farms, with their high-tech drip irrigation?
Useless. Dead tech in the fields, without power, without supplies, technologically orphaned, essentially.
While Palestinian villages, they fall back on older ways.
Exactly. Traditional methods, rationing with clay jars, catching rainwater, sharing communally. It's described as this deep, almost inherited knowledge of living with less.
And that image Burke paints, Israeli farmers trekking to Palestinian villages.
Humbled, carrying sacks of money that nobody wants, because what's valuable now? A clay pot, olives, practical wisdom.
How to make water stretch, how to survive on basics.
The currency is completely shifted. It's not finance, it's knowledge of survival. And Burke hammers this home. At the edge of collapse, both people saw the lesson in the dust water cannot be hoarded and survival cannot be bought.
It has to be shared.
It must be shared, or both will thirst to death. It's a brutal re-education, stripping away the pretense of wealth as security, exposing that shared biological need.
Darkness, thirst, and then month 3, sickness.
A deadly fever. And the terrifying thing Burke emphasizes is its indifference.
It doesn't care about checkpoints, borders, walls.
None of it. It sweeps across everything, indifferent to flags, politics, guns, a truly indiscriminate enemy.
Israeli hospitals, modern as they are overwhelmed quickly.
Within days, Burke writes, overflowing, resources strained to breaking. And in Gaza, the already fragile clinics, they collapse in hours.
Leaving people totally exposed. It's chilling. But you mentioned earlier, the first instinct is often isolation, fear building walls.
Right, the natural human response. People retreat. But Burke shows how the virus just mocks those divisions. It spreads relentlessly anyway.
So families flee.
Into the hills, desperate, carrying sick children. That universal image of anguish.
And the scientific response? Israel's labs race for a cure.
They have the knowledge, the tech. But Burke points out a critical flaw. Cure is useless without delivery, without community care. Containment fails without grassroots networks.
You need people on the ground.
You absolutely do. And paradoxically, the Palestinians, hardened by years of under-resourced healthcare, they have that practical, community-based knowledge. How to nurse the sick with very little.
Using traditional methods, community support.
Exactly. So the crisis forces this realization.
Yeah.
Neither side has the whole answer. Science needs community networks. Community care needs medicine.
They're incomplete without each other.
Totally. Burke puts it starkly. Each without the other was a half measure, and half measures meant death.
Wow.
And he says it was only when nurses from Nablus walked beside doctors from Haifa that the fever curve finally bent.
So the sickness forced what politics never could.
A pragmatic, life-saving cooperation, not goodwill, just shared existential threat. Heal together or die apart. Burke really emphasizes this merging of knowledge, the scientific and the practical, as indispensable.
Just when you think it can't get any worse. Month 4, the Earth itself rebels.
The quake of the rift, a massive earthquake originating from the Dead Sea Rift Zone, that volatile fault line.
And it's devastating. Jerusalem's ancient stones crumble, Gaza's walls collapse.
Tel Aviv's modern towers just fold. Twisted metal and concrete.
The ultimate equalizer, as you said, the ground literally levels them.
Yeah, the imagery Burke uses is incredibly stark. Dust choking everything, turning day into twilight, roads impassable, power lines tangled like dead vines.
And no help comes?
No external help. The scale is too fast. Both sides are screaming into dead phones, Burke writes. Silence.
So the rescue efforts?
They try. Israeli units have the heavy machinery, but fuel is scarce, the chaos unprecedented. Their sophisticated tools are often useless.
And Palestinians?
Clawing through rubble with bare hands, desperate. But sheer will isn't enough against concrete slabs. Every minute counts, lives are being lost.
So this is the final blow to any idea of separateness.
Absolutely. Wealth, power, tech. Irrelevant. The ground makes them all equal. And cooperation isn't just helpful now, it's the only way.
And Burke describes this strange cooperation taking shape.
Yes, born purely of raw necessity. Israeli engineers guiding Palestinian diggers, Palestinian medics guiding Israeli soldiers carrying water.
The roles just dissolve.
Completely. No uniforms, only survivors, Burke writes. The soldier, the engineer, the medic, they're just people trying to pull others from the wreckage.
And the truth written in the cracked stone.
The ground had leveled them. They would rise again only if they rose together. It's that ultimate inescapable lesson in shared vulnerability and the absolute imperative to cooperate to survive. Adversity stripping away everything else.
Okay, so that brings us to month 5. 4 months of darkness, thirst, fever, the quake. Unimaginable devastation. And Burke says something profound shifts here, the emergence of this divergent mindset.
Yeah, it's not just about physical survival anymore. It's about a fundamental change in thinking, in relating to each other.
Let's unpack that. It starts with the old structures just gone. Burke says by month 5, the disasters had erased all the scaffolding of the old conflict. That's a powerful phrase.
It really is. The physical infrastructure, power grids, currency gone, but also the symbols of conflict, checkpoints, slogans.
They become relics of a vanished order, meaningless.
Exactly. In their place. Just raw survival.
So it's not a negotiated ceasefire. It's like the foundation of the conflict itself just dissolved.
That's how Burke presents it. The physical destruction mirrors the destruction of the abstract structures. A checkpoint isn't a symbol anymore. It's just rubble blocking the path.
Utterly irrelevant to finding water or food.
Precisely. It's an obliteration of the framework, leaving this void filled only by the primal need to live. Burke seems to suggest conflict is almost a luxury of stability.
And when that stability shatters...
All energy, all resources, physical, mental, get diverted purely to survival. The old arguments just don't compute anymore. The environment itself demands a different focus.
And this forces people together physically, doesn't it, in these makeshift camps?
Yes, families from both sides, driven to the same patches of higher ground where maybe a spring still trickles, shared desperation.
And in those camps, the labels Israeli, Palestinian, they lose their meaning.
Burke says they mean very little when children are crying the same way from hunger, when everyone shares the same fear of aftershocks.
What matters is practical. Who has food? Whose hands can help?
Exactly. Whose pot held food and whose hands could steady another through the tremors. The shared vulnerability just dissolves those old identity markers.
So empathy emerges not from goodwill, but from shared suffering.
That's the implication. It becomes almost automatic. Seeing your own fear, your own hunger, reflected in someone you were taught was an enemy. It changes things fundamentally.
That image of parents comforting any child.
It's powerful. It highlights that common humanity that politics often obscures. Survival becomes undeniably collective. Group identity shifts from us versus them to just us, the survivors.
And alongside this, there's a merging of skills, of knowledge.
Yeah, driven purely by need. It's not planned. It's spontaneous. Israelis bring remnants of tech-broken machines, maybe some scavenged solar panels, bits of medicine.
The fragments of their old world.
Right. And Palestinians contribute their deep knowledge of the land, of scarcity clay jars for water, foraging, making meals stretch.
Ancient wisdom meets broken modernity.
In a way, yes. Burke gives examples like a clinic run by an Israeli biologist and a Palestinian nurse, side by side. Or a field being cleared by former soldiers and farmers working together.
Roles blurred, expertise shared.
Because it had to be. It wasn't about who was better. It was about realizing each side had crucial pieces the other lacked. This fusion created a much stronger, more resilient collective than either could manage alone.
So necessity becomes the mother of collaboration, not just invention.
Absolutely. It breaks down those old hierarchies. Survival demands using every available skill, regardless of its origin. It's organic problem solving at its most raw.
And the way the actual fighting stopped. It wasn't a decision, was it?
No, Burke is very clear on this. No politician had decreed a ceasefire, no treaty had been signed, nothing like that.
It was.
Time itself relentless and impartial that had pronounced judgment, Burke writes. Enough quarreling. The land has other demands now.
The sheer scale of the crisis just left no room for fighting.
No room, no energy, no point. Every hand was either building or burying. The choice was that stark.
So the environment, the circumstances, became the ultimate arbiter, not politics.
Exactly. It underscores how external pressures can completely reshape human priorities, achieving what political will often can't. The demands of reality find water, build shelter, care for the sick. They just supersede everything else.
The agency shifts from human conflict to environmental imperative.
Perfectly put. The land made its demands and the human quarrels became obsolete, a luxury they couldn't afford. It's a ceasefire imposed by catastrophic circumstance.
Which leads to this final fragile realization in month 5.
Yeah, Burke describes this strange, quiet settling over the camps. He's careful, though. It's not peace.
Too much grief for that.
Way too much grief, too much trauma. But there's this quiet understanding dawning that survival had become a single story,
A shared story.
and that each side held a half of the resilience the other lacked. The Israeli tech fragments, the Palestinian endurance knowledge, they needed each other.
Alone, they wither. Together, there's a chance.
That's the core of the divergent mindset, as Burke presents it. It's not idealism, it's hard-won pragmatism, born of necessity.
The old slogans feel hollow now.
Completely hollow in the rubble, they offer no answers. What remains is the devastatingly simple truth. Coexistence was no longer a dream or an ideology.
It was.
The last tool left to avoid extinction.
Wow. That reframes everything. Coexistence not as a goal, but as the only functional strategy left.
Exactly. It moves it from the realm of politics or morality into pure existential necessity. The path forward, any path, has to be shared. That's the stark lesson from the abyss, according to Burke.
So, wrapping this up, what does this deep dive into Burke's days of reckoning really leave us with? It's a brutal picture, isn't it? This abyss and the radical mindset shift it demands.
It is. We've walked through Burke's narrative of darkness, thirst, sickness, the earth shaking. Seeing how these disasters, in his telling, strip away the conflict structures and force cooperation.
The core lesson seems to be this profound interdependence revealed by shared vulnerability. Coexistence becomes utterly non-negotiable.
And connecting it to the bigger picture, Burke's narrative forces us to ask, is this kind of shared catastrophe the only way humanity truly learns interdependence? What does it take to make coexistence a pragmatic reality, not just a political hope?
It really pushes you to think about human nature under extreme pressure. What remains when everything else is gone?
Right. It's not a political prescription, but it reflects deeply on our capacity to adapt, innovate, and cooperate when facing annihilation. Maybe shared peril can forge bonds stronger than history.
Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe for you listening. What if Burke's abyss isn't always a sudden, dramatic collapse like the one he describes?
You mean like slower burn crises?
Yeah, what if it's a creeping accumulation of challenges? Think climate change, maybe deep inequalities, eroding trust. Does the need for that divergent mindset feel less urgent if the threat isn't immediate, right in your face?
Or does it just become a different kind of urgency, maybe one that requires a proactive shift, not just a reactive scramble after disaster hits?
Exactly. Perhaps that last tool left to avoid extinction, that pragmatic need for coexistence Burke writes about, maybe it's always there.
Waiting to be picked up, even before the world falls apart.
Something to think about. What do you think?